Hello, my name is Tamara, and today we are going to talk about essays, how to write, and how to analyze essays. So what is an essay? An essay is a short, formal piece of writing dealing with a single subject. So it's typically written to try to persuade a reader into using research and evidence to prove a point. So in general, an academic essay has three parts. You have an introduction, a middle or body, and then the conclusion. What the introduction does is it gives a reader an idea of what you're going to learn, and it presents some arguments in the form of a thesis statement. You have a body, which is the middle section, that produces the evidence. So it shows all the points that are supporting your thesis. So this is helping to persuade even further the information that you're trying to get across through your thesis statement. And then you end with a conclusion, which wraps up a summary of everything that you've discussed, re-highlighting the main points that you made in your thesis statement. So a good way to talk about an essay and a good way to go about learning about how to write an essay is using a hamburger method. The hamburger method is very simple. Everyone eats hamburgers. You have the bun, you have the meat, and then you have the other bun at the end. So let's get into more details about what that means in terms of essays. So for the hamburger format, you have the top bun. The top bun would be your introduction. What is it that you're going to be presenting to the audience, to the reader? Then you have your lettuce, which is the first paragraph. So in the introduction paragraph, you have all of the information about what the topic is. At the ending of the introduction, you discuss what your thesis statement is, which is your statement and the 3 points you're going to be discussing throughout the actual essay. The way that this works in the introduction is that you're going to have your thesis statement at the very end, and you're going to have what you're presenting, what side of the argument you're on, and then the 3 points that you are going to use that is going to be highlighted in the essay to support your point. So lettuce would be paragraph number 1, which would talk about the first bullet point of your thesis statement. Then you have the tomato, which is bullet number 2, which goes over the second bullet point of your thesis statement. And then you have the burger, again, which is your third paragraph. So the last part of your thesis statement. And then the bottom bun, which is the conclusion. So let's get into more detail about what each of these means. So the introduction, here you'll mention the topic of your essay and its thesis. As you know, essays can't live without a thesis. You must have a thesis no matter what in your essay. So your thesis statement in your outline will help you support each paragraph in the body of your essay. So the introduction is really important for letting people know what it is that you're going to be talking about throughout the essay, but also really important for highlighting your thesis. A thesis is what makes an essay. An essay cannot exist without a thesis because it shows the roadmap of what you're going to be doing throughout the course of the essay. Body paragraphs. So there will be a minimum of 3 paragraphs in your essay's body. So you can have more paragraphs, but a minimum of 3. So you need to make sure you include each one in the outline. So essay outlines are really important because they help you structure what it is that you're going to be writing about before you start actually writing your essay. So for each paragraph, you're going to write down a topic sentence. So what is the topic of this paragraph going to be? With an argument relating to your thesis, and mention all of the support. So the data, the facts, and the examples. So any other evidence that you use to prove this topic sentence will be in this paragraph as well. So basically, the topic sentence is going to talk about what specifically you're going to talk about in that specific paragraph, and then all the evidence that is going to prove that point. Then you have your conclusion, so you wrap your essay up here, you restate your thesis, and you summarize the goal of your paper. So you basically go and talk about the introduction, everything that you talked about in the introduction, but now you're summarizing everything that we've learned throughout the course of the essay. You are talking about your thesis, you're restating it in different words, but essentially the same points, and then you're summarizing the goal of your paper, okay? So essay outlines, I was talking about this earlier. What is an essay outline? So an essay outline is a short plan of your research paper. Here you write down the main idea of your essay and structurize all arguments into paragraphs to make sure you won't miss anything while writing. So it's basically like giving yourself a way of putting your whole essay out in short form before you write it in long form, which is very important to know that you're not going to lose your place when you're writing an essay, okay? So sure enough, you can write an essay without outlining it, but I would not suggest it. It will be challenging to do so. You want to make sure that the outline is the most essential part of when you're writing an essay before you start, because it gives you the idea of how your structure will work and also helps create a roadmap for the person that's reading your essay. So why are essay outlines needed? So essay outlines are needed because it will help you organize your thoughts. When you research the data for your essay, you get tons of information that's hard to remember. So it's best to put everything in an essay outline so you don't remember all the main points and evidence that you're going to use to support your thesis. So you'll understand the information flow and you'll be able to structurize it accordingly. It will help you not miss anything while you're writing your essay because you have already a manuscript of your paper. Okay? So here's a sample essay outline. As you can see here, it would start off with the introduction, okay? And then so you introduce your topic and then you state your thesis. That's the main thing that you're doing in your introduction. Then you have body paragraph number 1. So in body paragraph number 1, it will be the first point of what you're saying in your thesis. So you're going to write a topic sentence about what you're going to talk about in this paragraph from the argument from your thesis. Then you support this argument with data, facts, and examples. And then at the end of the paragraph, you're explaining how this relates to your thesis. Okay, so for body paragraph number 2, you're doing the same thing. What is the topic that you're talking about in body number 2 based on the thesis? What are you going to use to support that? What data have you found? What facts have you found? What examples can you use to relate this body paragraph to your thesis? And then you explain how it relates to your thesis again. Then you have body paragraph number 3. You're going to do the same thing, write a topic sentence from your thesis statement. So this will be the third point in your thesis statement. And then you're just going to support this argument and explain why the counter argument doesn't work. Okay, so what are the data? What is the data? What are the facts? And what are the examples? And then you explain how this relates to your thesis. Then you have your conclusion. In the conclusion, you're going to have a summary of all the points that you've talked about thus far. And you're restating your thesis again, but in different words. And then you make a call to action. A call to action means, what do you want your readers to know after reading your essay? Okay, so what is the main point that you're trying to prove now that you've given all this information, all this data, all this feedback, all of these examples? Now, at the end of all of this, what is it that you were trying to prove by writing this essay? So when you have this essay outline structured like this, you're able to have what you're going to talk about, what your paragraphs are going to be about, and what your conclusion is, and then you can start actually typing out or writing out your essay. So thesis statement, I keep talking about that. Let's get into what a thesis statement is. So a thesis statement clearly identifies the topic being discussed. It includes the points discussed in the paper and is written for a specific audience. Your thesis statement belongs at the end of your first paragraph, also known as your introduction. Use it to generate interest in your topic and encourage your audience to continue reading. So this is why this is at the end of the introduction, because as you're reading the introduction, you're getting a lot of feedback, and your reader's probably thinking, so what? What do you want to prove? And the thesis is like, this is what I'm going to prove, and this is the way I'm going to show it to you with these 3 points, okay? So here's the thing that you need to think about when you're writing a thesis statement. Do I answer the question that's being asked of me? So you want to reread the question prompt after you have your essay assignment, and you're going to make sure that your thesis is the question at hand. Have I taken a position that others might challenge or oppose? So if your thesis simply states facts that no one would or even could disagree with, it's possible that you're simply providing a summary rather than an argument. So you want to make sure that you're not saying something that everybody already thinks. You want to make sure that you're presenting a side of the argument that is a little bit different, that people want to see why you would think that and how you found that information. Is my thesis statement specific enough? So thesis statements are too vague sometimes, and they don't seem to have a strong argument. You want to make sure that it's specific enough that you're going to be able to prove something that's meaningful about what you were trying to prove in your essay. So you don't want to use words like good or successful. You want to use more specific words that are going to prove things wholeheartedly on one side of the argument. If you say, yeah, pizza's good is not a very good thesis statement, okay? You want to say pizza is one of the best foods in the world, then that's a little bit more specific, because then you can talk about the reason why you consider it to be the best pizza in the world. So does my thesis pass the so what test? If your response is likely to be so what to your thesis statement, that means that you are having a problem connecting your thesis statement to something that someone would want to read to see why you're proving that point. And then does my essay support my thesis without wandering? So if your thesis and the body of your essay do not seem to go together, one of them has to change. It's okay to change your working thesis to reflect things that you have to figure out in the course of the writing of your paper, okay? So sometimes you're writing your essay and you're using your outline, and then you realize maybe I want to change my thesis statement because I'm leaning more towards this actual idea. It's okay to rework that. That's the whole point of having your essay outline. So, and then does my thesis pass the how and why test? If a reader's first response is how and why, the thesis may be too open-ended. How does this happen, or why is this happening? You want to actually have something very specific. How should be already proven in your thesis statement, how this is going to be achieved and why it's going to be achieved. Why are you writing this essay and how are you going to prove it? Okay, so you always want to keep that in mind when you're thinking of a thesis statement. So there are two types of thesis statements that you can work with. The first uses a list of 2 or more points. This is the more popular version of a thesis statement, and the one that actually is able to prove and present evidence and data more effectively. So this style of thesis is perfect for a brief essay that contains 2 or 3 body paragraphs. This is a basic 5-paragraph essay, which is what we are talking about with the hamburger method, and is typical of middle and high school student assignments, okay? So here's an example of this type of thesis statement. So C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia series is one of the richest works of the 20th century because it offers an escape from reality. Teaches readers to have faith even when they don't understand, and contains a host of vibrant characters. So when you look at this, you see that there is a point that is being proven. So C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia is one of the richest works of the 20th century. That is the point. It's one of the richest works. That's what they're trying to prove, okay? How are they going to prove that? Because it offers an escape from reality. So the first body paragraph would be talking about how it offers an escape from reality. Teaches readers to have faith even when they don't understand. So that would be the second body paragraph, talking about how you have faith throughout the whole course of the work of the Chronicles of Narnia. Even when you don't understand, you're like having faith that things are going to work out. And contains a host of vibrant characters. So the last paragraph before the conclusion would be all about how great and how vibrant these characters are. So the formula for this, if you want to know exactly how to write an effective thesis statement like this for an argument, right? So one thing that I find helpful for students is having a clear template. So how you would write this, while students rarely end up with a thesis that follows this exact wording, the following template creates a good starting point. So this is basically the way that you can start to structure your thesis statement if you want to use the 3-point method. So blank, so whatever you're talking about, is true because of blank, blank, and blank. Okay, so that is the way that you're going to structure your thesis statement, okay? Conversely, the formula for a thesis with 1 point might follow this. Blank is true because of blank. That's not the type of essay that we're going to be working with, but it's good to know that there's that other side. Students usually end up using different terminology than simply because, but having a template is always helpful to get the creative juices flowing. Okay, so it's basically, you want to have what your argument is. This is true because of these 3 points, okay? So for example, we were talking about pizza earlier. So pizza is the best food in the world because it's easy to make. It has a huge history, and it can be vegetarian or it can be for people who like meat. So you have 3 different points. You want to make sure that you have 3 points that are supporting your argument. So here's a sample thesis, okay? So lately, this is a topic that, for example, you would write a thesis statement on. So lately, society has been looking at social media as the reason why students are less productive. Do you believe that social media has a positive or negative effect on the younger generation? Explain. Okay, so when you were trying to do this sample thesis, you go back. So what is the topic that we're talking about? Do you believe that social media has a positive or negative effect on the younger generation? So you would start off with, social media has a positive or negative effect on the younger generation because of 1 point, 2 points, and 3 points. So that's the way that you would structure your argument, and then you would be doing research on those 3 points to prove this point. So that is the introduction to how to write an essay using the hamburger method and using the thesis structure. And next we will go over the details of how to analyze an essay and how to create a works cited page. Thanks so much for stopping by.